If you just joined us, this is International Forum, and today we're taking a look at Donald Trump's cabinet, analyzing the individuals and the capability to join Donald Trump in his MAGA agenda, making America great again. With me here in the studio, I have political affairs commentator, political analyst. Join me to welcome Dr. Cyril Kumbawa, PhD. Welcome, Doc.
Thank you, Wilson.
I appreciate your comment. All right. So very close to him, he is a political analyst, an entrepreneur, a mobilizer of youths. Yes, join me to welcome Honorable Etiosa Igibo, a.k.a. Sunny. Hello, Sunny. How you doing? Whatever, I'm not Will Smith.
No, you got those moves.
Okay, fine. All the way from New Jersey, United States of America, Honorable Ehi Egareva, one-time local government boss, yes, and of course a political analyst and entrepreneur. It's a pleasure to have you join us via Zoom. Welcome, Honorable.
Thank you very much, Wilson, and good afternoon, viewers.
All right. Now, since it's all about Trump and you are up there, we're going to start off from you, Honorable. Now, what do you feel about the constituents, so to speak, of the president-elect Donald Trump? Some are saying that the cabinet or the president has been picked, that they were racially profiled. After all, they don't have a representative from the black race. Allow me to use that phrase, black race. Over to you, Honorable He.
Thank you very much. I think Donald Trump pretty much has been, firstly, in line with United States political conventions, must be commended for having been able to put together a team of about, so far, about 33 senior cabinet picks, which reflects, the type of people he believes can help him drive his agenda, which primarily, like you rightly said, is the MAGA, which is Make America Great Again. And I'll just correct that last line that you put, because we have Scott Turner, who is the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. That is a huge department here in the United States, in terms of mass housing. And so he's from the African American community. Then if you again look, if former Senator Marco Rubio is confirmed by the Senate as expected, that will be the first Latino American who will be the Secretary of State. It's never happened before. So with that being said, I think he's reflected his cabinet to reveal the direction he would like for his government to go, which everyone also knows he's trying to take care of the border issues, which is germane, which was a major campaign issue. And he has rightly put in Hoffman there, who will be his border czar. So I think the cabinet right now is looking great and would reflect what Donald Trump campaigned about in his elections.
All right. I'll come back to you, Honorable. Well, you heard him. He said the cabinet is looking great, as against some comment made by some persons in our climb saying that they didn't see any black representative right now in the cabinet so far being constituted by the president-elect Donald Trump. Now, what do you feel about the constitution, so to speak, of Trump's cabinet? Cyril.
Well, first of all, I think that in America, as it should be in a sane climb, I think competence should be the driver for picking people who would drive an agenda of government. This one is one that was so profound. There was a lot of issues that was bordering on the integrity of the American nation. As at the time, it seemed the American dream was collapsing. So he promised to get his people right. This cabinet has been very wonderful in my opinion, although it's not been without controversies. We've had issues with picks like Tulsi Gabbard, former nominee designate for National Intelligence, National Security Advisor. We also had Matt Gaetz, and who had some baggages, but thankfully he's withdrawn his nomination. I think it's also very important to commend Donald Trump on the appointment of Tom Homan to lead the charge, with the border, because it was a major electionary campaign issue, and I think that he got the overwhelming vote expressing the confidence of Americans, the majority of them, in his ability to rule, because they have a reference point back to 2016 when he was in office. So I think that he's made good so far by appointing Tom Homan, whom he expects to drive it. Yes, it's controversial in a whole lot of ways. It's been a campaign issue for him when he said there was going to be mass deportation. But I think that even at that, despite the threat that poses to the society, issues regarding separation of families, I think what's most important is the sanity of the American society.
All right.
I believe that those people who are worthy, who are contributing positively to the economy, somehow would find a way to maintain their stay. Why those criminal elements can be out. Yeah, but you would expect that with this sort of cabinet, the liberal media should give him a pass. But yet, it's been so controversial. And to the
We'll come to the
that you have,
controversial aspect of it.
Pack of people,
Yeah.
the DNC governors who are forming a resistance bloc, and especially those who had their states declared as sanctuary cities. They are trying to see what they can to push back on Trump's agenda, especially with deportations and issues of border.
Okay, I will come back to it because we're going to dwell more on that: immigration, deportation, the borders, and the rest of them. Now, in course of picking his cabinet, some people choose to step down and say, look, we just can't work with the man Trump. Or, due to the outcry of Americans, it'd be like, okay, fine, withdraw your nomination. But because of some baggages by these persons, they choose on their own step down. Do you feel that this will cause any kind of negative feelings towards Donald Trump's cabinet?
Well, I think the negative feelings I would have created would have been taken care of for the fact that these very people that have had questionable character, as they say, has put out the nomination. Even nominee has an issue. Somebody has to say it. I think some of the information or stories I was hearing was the fact that some of them had some times of doing things that was not very appropriate, if you like. And if Donald Trump has deemed fit to say, well, their nomination should be withheld or withdrawn, I think that would give the people to believe that maybe all that they're doing is right. However, when it comes to the issues of forming a government, it's always a very difficult task because everybody believes that they have viable contributions to bring to the table. And sometimes they say you try and error. You cannot say for a fact that maybe if you pick Mr. A, Mr. B, or Mr. C, that is when you get your result. Because if that was the case, there will not be issues and this scrutiny and so much noise coming from the outward on who should lead them in every one of the agencies of the government parastatals. So I think it's a people's thing. I think the biggest question is about how social they are, how much do they care about the people, because it's about driving government policies. And like you may know in different climes, governance is very similar. But with people and culture, there become slight differences because it's not what a particular country desires now, it's not what the next country desires or wants. And just like the two guys that have spoken said, unspoken the issue of whether or not the government or making America great again, they're doing well. I don't know. I think America is great already. Unless maybe there might be areas and things they're not telling us, which some people who are privy to understand the pains that certain Americans may be going through due to bad policies may be going through. For example, things may be hard in America. They don't say that out to the outward. But ordinarily, you would think that America is great. But sometimes when you see certain things and they say, well, there is actually poverty in America, it's difficult for people to believe, maybe in a much smaller context compared to other climes. And these messages are put out with certain regions or countries to feel like they are completely down, while in their case, they concede those information to kind of give them that comparative advantage of how they're leading the nation and what they're about to do. And just to throw a little light on the Trump immigration policies, I like a lot of things that he has done. I said it on the set that I believe Trump would win because of who he was contesting against, and today he has won, and that was my instinct, and my instinct is never wrong most of the times. But in terms of these immigration policies that he has, he's very right-wing, he's very racist, and I think there's a need for him to take a step back and not just say these people are criminals, for instance. You want to do what they call mass deportation. If you live in America for 1 month, you already feel a sense of belonging, being part of somebody who stays in America. If you have a family there, it is not fair or right, whether rightly or wrongly, because even Trump himself, parents migrated to the U.S.
Yeah.
He was born there.
You're right
so it's
about
not 100% someone who may have just come from the U.S. and is been in the U.S. because ordinarily the local indigenous people in the U.S. were Red Indians.
All right. You talk about the Aborigines. We'll come to that. Now, let me move straight down to New Jersey, where Honorable here, everybody standing by. Someone saying that the selection of the cabinet, done within Trump's men, so to speak. His political party, Republicans, his allies that have standing by him all through thick and thin. That is how he got to choose his cabinet, that most of the members of the cabinet, these are politically chosen members of cabinet. What do you have to say about that particular presumption, if it is a presumption?
Well, not all of his cabinet positions were motivated by politics, because if you look at those, hello?
Yeah, I can hear
Yes,
you.
can you hear
Continue.
me?
Yes.
Okay, if you look at someone like Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, they are going to be leading the charge in terms of government efficiency, trying to cut down on Americans, debts. These are highly professional individuals. They are billionaires in their own rights. They are businessmen. Though they have political inclinations and interests, which I believe most human beings have. But I think. President-elect Trump has bothered to look out for those who are capable of driving his own agenda. He's come to restore some semblance of sanity. For us that live in the United States here, it's a two-way thing in terms of if you look at the immigration situation here, which I also know you were mentioning, it's a two-way thing here. America remains, of course, an immigrant country, but at the same time, it is not a wise thing to have an open border, especially with the southern border situation. But basically, President Trump has brought in people who he believes are capable of helping him drive his agenda. Of course, like a lot of them are from the political sphere. They are including two governors and several ex-congressmen and a serving senator. They've all been, brought on board to come and help him drive his agenda.
All right. All right, I will come back to you, Honorable. Now, he mentioned Elon Musk, and of course, this lady also a co-founder, that is Mrs. McMahon, co-founder of WWE. So I say that, come on, entertainment, in education, of course, there's that to the extent that some governors are beginning to form resistance, saying our own state will not be a buffer zone for mass deportation. Do you think he made a mistake by really bringing these people into his cabinet?
I don't think it's a mistake. It's intentional. He made a campaign promise during the electionary period, and he secured the overwhelming confidence of the American people. Don't forget that this election, he won it both on the Electoral College as well as the popular vote. And of course, he's one of the outliers in the Republican Party, because it's been a while, since a Republican president won popular vote. Let me remind us that in 2016, when he contested, although he won Hillary Clinton, he won on the Electoral College and lost the popular vote.
Yes.
So this is a referendum on the issues that are bothering the American people. On that chart, one of the priorities would be border security. An open border policy and a path to citizenship for people who are undocumented has come with a lot of baggage. First of all, you've had a lot of criminal entities pouring through the southern border and hit the ground running, committing crimes. Don't forget now that because of the open border policy of President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, we now have a renowned gang from Venezuela. It's called the Tren de Aragua. The advent in the American space wasn't heard of until this time, and they've taken advantage of the open border, all right, to infiltrate America, and they're pouring a lot of drugs, a lot of fentanyl, there's a lot of crime and stuff like that. And the American people are genuinely concerned. Yeah, when they say mass deportation, I think the liberal media are just trying to blow it out of proportion. Actually, there are a whole number of people that have been identified as elements that have committed crimes, and they are even now in the American jail systems. Right, they are there, and all the president is saying, we start with those. Deport those who have been found wanting, who have committed crimes in America, deport them back to their home countries, and hopefully we take it from there, because I know that America as a nation would need individuals that would, contribute labor, which is a critical aspect of that is needed for the growth of the economy. Yeah, I think the cabinet picks have been excellent, except for a few controversial picks I did mention about Matt Gaetz. For example, let's not forget that. For me, I think that the nomination of the HHS
you just hold on. You just hold on. Continue with your line of
Jr.
thought after this break. We need to go for a break. We'll return. The discussion will continue. Do stay. Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you just joined us, this is International Forum, and we're taking a look at Donald Trump's cabinet. You're making a point before we went to that break. Please continue with the point you were making.
We had very critical picks for certain offices, like the HHS secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's one who's got a revolutionary mindset. He wants to make America healthy again. He wants to eliminate the bottlenecks and the bureaucracies that are affecting the health of the American people. America, as it stands, is one nation that spends so much on healthcare, and yet poor results are delivered relative to other nations who don't spend as much, and they still have good results for healthcare. So that for me is a very outstanding pick. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as HHS secretary. They also have a new entrant into government, which before now we haven't seen. We now have a new department called the Department of Government Efficiency, where, like Honorable Igariba noted, where you have Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. Now, these are individuals who are distinguished, in their own rights, and I believe that these people coming into government will help cut down spending, government spending, unnecessary government spendings, and get the economy back where it should be. There's also the issue of the liberal governors that are setting up resistant blocks. I don't think, these guys are really not patriotic. What they care about is just their party, and partisan enough to the extent that they don't want to jostle for opportunity in the next coming election. Of course, that is a fault that was occasioned by the process that got Kamala Harris to emerge, because it wasn't a competitive process. So everybody wants to oppose Trump to place themselves as that number one person, in terms of alternatives to run against the president come.
All right, 2027. I will come back to you, Cyril Kumbawa. Well, Honorable Etiosa, you heard it. The major concern right now of Americans is that aspect of immigration. It's like everyone, or most of the people, Democrats, they are scared of how Holmes will really handle that particular aspect of deportation. He's not hiding it. He's just going to follow what Donald Trump has in mind. Massive deportation. And some states will stand as a base. Hence, the former resistance already to say, no, you can't use our state as a base for deportation. Do you think this will bring them back to what Donald Trump did in his first tenure, separating families? And this might be resisted by Americans.
Yes, most definitely. Just like as I said, immigration is lacking to anything that is negative. It's lacking to tribalism, it's lacking to racism, if you want to call it. If it's within the country, he said it's tribal. If it is a border thing, he said it's racism. There's no doubt that when people speak on the fact that Donald Trump has always kind of nominated and appointed many white folks as his members of cabinet, obviously it's something that is may not be necessarily important when it comes to capacity and competence, but at the same time, it also matters in a state like America, because America has had long-term of black people who were influxed and transported there to do the slave trade jobs, and at the same time had the opportunity to now call themselves Black Americans. And obviously looking at JFK Sr., you know what happened to him, because he gave women or maybe black people the opportunity to enjoy the same social privileges as white people. That may be hopeful with JFK Jr. being in a system to kind of help grow the goodwill of whatever the president wishes on the people. However, the immigration thing to me is a big deal, because America as a world leader, whether or not it is Donald Trump that is the president now, or the Democrats were in presidency under Joe Biden, everybody knows that American foreign policy is very harsh. American foreign policy is very, very harsh, to the point that they can come into your country to get what they want. They don't care what the consequences are. If you go back to the history and look at those that are far away from the United States as a country, they are nationalists. There are people who believe getting things that you want, whichever ways or means that you want to get it, even if it involves violence. However, a lot of the troubles that has happened to the people moving in from the South of America, it is because their country is facing a lot of turmoil in terms of economic development, especially when you don't key into the American policies most of the time. They want to come and get what they want, which is what created the First World War, like I said. It was a closed market system in Japan, and they had to make sure that they open it and set up what they call the Bretton Woods system, which is the open market. They will create the backdrop and the problem of influx, of why people move from different countries and look for greener pastures in America. Then a new government cannot just come in and tell you that, well, everybody that has come in from these countries may be the bad guy. No, they are not. A lot of people that has come into America legally may be those who were privileged in those countries. They have money to bring into the American economy. Boom, you're welcome to America. For those that they've undermined in their country, that have made to suffer, the common man are not looking for greener pastures, you call them criminals. The question is, how do you identify the difference between the criminals and those who are genuinely trying to move from wherever they are to America to believe that when you're in America, you'll make it? Those becomes the question mark, because like you said, in the past when Trump was there, I'm a fan of Trump to an extent. I like most of the things he has said and done, but in terms of the racial thing, I don't particularly believe that he doesn't have a racist element in him. Because for you to just get people and say, I don't care if I separate you from your kids and you're deporting them, it amounts to human rights abuse to a very large extent, because they're already in the country. Are you telling me that those people you saw 4 years ago that was being taken out of the country, sometimes fathers, mothers, are you telling me they also committed crime? Of course they did not. That is some of the knuckleheads, we call them certain people that are brown hair. They have a way of thinking. They have a mindset. And that mindset is what pushes whatever they believe in. And for those who have not probably existed around them, you may not understand the pains of how it feels.
All right.
For people to have lived in a country, whether they come in legally or illegally, because illegal migrants can become legal. They can document
Over
them.
time.
Over time.
Yes.
And even if you look at this country, for instance, like Nigeria and most African countries, a lot of the Western people come here to do businesses and they don't even do a proper documentation. Because they have this kind of high-profile ratings as people, they get away with a lot of things you can do in their country. So to me, I don't think the harsh policy of the immigration approach to deporting and mass deportation it's complete racism.
Okay.
They cannot do that. And to me, that is one bad aspect of Trump's policy that I don't like. In terms of other foreign policies, like I want this war to stop, like he retreated from Afghanistan, he retreated from Iraq. Under Trump, with all due respect, he was able to negotiate with President Putin. He was able to visit the guy from the North Korea. You can see
Kim Jong-un.
Kim Jong-un, the world needed to be at peace for development and progress to come.
All right, I'll come back to you, Honorable. Now let's move straight down to New Jersey, where Honorable here, everybody is standing by. Some of the opinion that it was Joe Biden's administration that messed up in this particular aspect. That is the reason why Trump is having all the muscles to clean it up. What do you have to say about this? Can you hear me, Honorable?
Yeah, I can hear you. Please, can you repeat the question again?
Yeah. So someone was saying it was because of Joe Biden's administration messed up in handling immigration procedures. That's the reason why Trump is having these 3 days, so to speak, to do what he's doing or what he's about to do in terms of mass deportation. How true is this?
Well, when we talk about mass deportation of people, I think there's a large misconception, even within the United States and outside of the United States. The people that the Trump administration is talking about mostly are the undocumented immigrants. The undocumented immigrants are people who came into this country without inspection. Even those who come in here with visas, they are already documented. From the point where you apply for visa, your biometrics are taken, and there are already certain passports that are approved that are used for US visa application. So at that point, all your critical information, such as your date of birth, your biometric, and your names and all of those things have been obtained by the United States. And at the point of entering into the United States, you are also repossessed, and the country is aware that you are here, which means you are documented. The country have the capacity to track you down, to know about whether you have overstayed or not, but yet they have your information, so you are documented. But those coming in through the southern border, many of them do not even have passports. So you have to take them by their words of mouth. If they say they are 18, they are 18. Even if they are over or below, they can just assume any name they want to assume. So this is the
Those are
challenge.
things where the
I don't
lapses
think.
Trump was talking about. Concerning Joe Biden's administration, these are the lapses. You let them in, no documentation, and are making a huge mess of the system.
Yes, and I don't think Joe Biden actually wanted to, which he did. He did clear a backlog of immigration issues. Don't forget, just prior to Joe Biden's administration, we had COVID, and therefore there was a stagnation in the immigration processes. And most government offices were closed, or they ran skeletal services. So millions and millions.
Yeah, please continue. We can
That
hear you.
also was a challenge for Joe Biden. But though he moved very speedily, he has reduced considerably immigration processing times for a lot of people, from green card to passport and all of that. But again, with regards to the children, President Obama had brought in the DACA. Which is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival, which Donald Trump is against. He believes that children should go with their parents, and if their parents cannot be found, unfortunately, they will have to be returned to their countries of birth, especially when they are undocumented, because it's just, I think it's a security issue for a country like America that also have a lot of enemies, to just have an open border policy. It's not good for economic planning. It's not good for security. And it's just somehow have to be regulated. But while we are saying all of these mass deportation, which also is going to be a huge challenge, because you're going to need the cooperation of governors. And in America, we have what we call sanctuary cities and states. I'm in a sanctuary state like New Jersey. And so you're going to need local resources, cooperation of the governors from here. And this is a democratic state, like New York is a democratic state, California is a democratic state. He may get cooperation from Florida because it's a Republican state, but some of the democratic states, I don't see their willingness to commit their local security resources to assist ICE in carrying out this mass deportation. And where would the funding comes from? And most of these people also have to be brought before judges. So that's huge amount of money will have to be spent, in terms of legal fees on behalf of the United States government to get these actions to take place. So it is, until the administration kicks off, before they can put in the appropriate guidelines that will be used and where the funding will come from. So till then, it's fingers crossed.
All right. Well, if you just joined us, this is International Forum. We're going for another break. When we return, the question will now be, some presidents are in a hurry to make it through the American border. And Trump saying that once it comes up, apart from mass deportation, there will be some sanctions levied against Mexico, Canada, for some reasons about taxation. Don't forget about the wall he promised to build the other time that Mexicans will pay. Is he going to do just that? That will return after this break. Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you just joined us, this is International Forum. I'm about commencing our descent of today's edition of International Forum. Donald Trump has won the election, both popular vote and, of course, electoral college. He has formed this cabinet thus far. People are talking about it. Americans are apprehensive. How is he going to make sure that America becomes great again? According to him, America is not what it used to be. And if he comes back to power, which he has already, January will be the inauguration, but he's making moves to make the world know that there is a new sheriff in town. Right now, sir, if you take a look at everything that is happening right now in America, some persons are making serious haste to gain access into America. I mean, and it's like they are gaining it. And don't forget also about what he promised to do to Mexico, about the war. Do you think all these will play out in his tenure?
Definitely, I believe he's going to get that wall built. But how the wall will be funded remains a matter for another day. I think it's important that that wall is in place. The pushback against undocumented immigration is not just that people cannot enter the country, but let them enter the country properly. The merits of those cannot be overemphasized. As it were, America's place in the world is one that demands that they should always take national security concerns very seriously. We've seen in the past how criminal elements, terrorist elements have infiltrated and caused mayhem. When you come in through the documented model, it's easy to track down, it's easy to keep the society safe. That said, his foreign policy positions, I'll tell you, have been known before the election. You know, is one that would not allow the war in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine, to protract, as he said that he's going to do what he can to end the war. And you know that's. But I'm surprised that America, who's though supported Ukraine with aid prior to this time, have now authorized the use of long-range missiles donated by the U.S. government to them. I think that is to ratchet up pressure and maybe cause the war to spiral out of control or degenerate. For me, that also raises some questions about the foreign policy interests of the Joe Biden administration. Thankfully, 20th January, there will be a new man on the saddle, and I believe that he will begin to push back on some of those policies that are radical at the moment. Don't forget that this cabinet picks has also been one that has been full of milestones. For example, we have Susie Wiles as the first female chief of staff in America. So that's a plus. For those who are crazy about diversity and inclusion, I think it should be about competence. And so far, from what we've seen, I think this administration is ready to hit the ground running. Of course, the DNC, doing their bid as the opposition party, are doing what they can to frustrate the process. But the man has also said that recess appointments are an option and is willing to use it should they not play ball.
Thank you.
He picked the cabinet. The American people have trusted him with their confidence, and I think he has their blessings to do what he deems fit to drive home his electioneering campaign promises.
Thank you so much, Sir. And I saw last line on this discussion. Well, Honorable Atio, sir, I mean, Americans now, some of them are happy, others are not really happy about this election. But now, what do you feel Americans should be looking forward to?
Well, what I think Americans should be looking forward to is just for them to live in a country that is a lot safer. I understand that undocumented immigrant issues is a big issue, just like we have in Nigeria when people just come in from Niger and they can do stuff and get away. That is something that I think should be taken care of. Then the issue of healthcare. You know, I was in Canada a few weeks ago, and though I stopped by over in New York, and some of my friends from LAX were complaining that they don't want Trump to be the president to win because the blue states and the red states. That was when I started to hear about the blue states and the red states. All they were talking about was the issues of abortion rules or policies. Well, when I listened to them carefully in Nova Scotia, and I also made my little contributions to say, well, I think there are many ways you can do things. I don't think because of the idea of what religious affiliation played a little bit
Yeah.
in the idea of who becomes a president should stop Trump from being the president if he has other good things. For example, like the issue of Ukraine and Russia. I've seen him stop wars, and I also believe that if he becomes president, the tension in Ukraine and Russia will go down. And
Even Israel, Hamas, come Iran.
some people believe it's going to escalate Israel, but I believe it's also going to stop that because it's having a problem with the neocons, what they call the neocolonialism. So going back to the issue of Americans and what they will expect and the issue of healthcare, the Obamacare is another thing that they complained about, that Trump does not believe on Obamacare, that if you're ill, you must have the money to pay for your healthcare and things like that. I will hope and wish that for Americans to be happier, because you are more poorer in the society than the middle class and the richer class, such that the Obamacare thing is looked at, maybe process improvements rather than outright abolishment, so that at the end of the day, the common man can also benefit and things like that. So all these are the little aspects that I will assume that Americans enjoy, because when you're in America real time, you will realize that the regular Americans who lives in the subway are living not any different from the regular guy who live on $1 a day.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Honorable Chiosa. Well, Honorable Higariba, you have the last take on this particular discussion. In 1 minute, what should be expected from Donald J. Trump and his team?
Well, harping again on the immigration aspect, Donald Trump has promised something which I believe is pure genius, that anyone who comes to school in the United States here, even if from a junior college, a first degree, a master's degree, or PhD, should qualify automatically for a green card, which will enhance quality migration into the United States. And again, I know NATO will be very unhappy right now because they know he's going to ask them to pay their fair share. And there's a need to stop the war in Ukraine and, of course, the one in Israel, because it's having very grave consequences for the American economy. You know, sponsoring these wars come with a huge financial toll on the United States, and some of these monies could have been deployed to domestic use. For the about 11.7 million undocumented immigrants, obviously, it is not feasible to deport 11 million people, especially when many of them are legally required to come before judges. And some of these judges, if you recall, just last week, Joe Biden's government had quickly approved and appointed about over 224 federal judges. And most of these judges are the people that these guys will have to come before. And these are democratic nominated and appointed judges. So, and some of them, there will be bottlenecks here and there, but by and large, I think Donald Trump is trying to bring some sanity into the American security system and enhance quality migration, while also not forgetting that the immigrants play a key role in these in the certain sectors in the United States, especially agricultural sector. And most of the factories are filled with, undocumented immigrants, and we need them to get a job done and to keep the economy running.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Higariba. I appreciate a wonderful analysis all the way from New Jersey, one of the sanctuary states. I hope when it comes into handling American affairs, we won't have to see many undocumented immigrants just there in the buffer zone. Anyway, let's just see how this will pan out. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being on today's show. Let's see how Donald J. Trump will take America from where it is right now to where it ought to be. After all, it's all about MAGA, Make America Great Again. Bye for now.